We have Garay Oak, not Gary, Garay. We have Garay Oak against Locopoke. Fabulous clash of usernames. We have Kyogre against Deoxys Normal. Now that is a blast from the past. Locopoke was one of the best Ubers players when the generation was current. I don't think he's touched it since the generation ended, but that's part of what this tournament is all about, bringing the old players back to play a metagame they loved. So you can see that some of them are taking some time to get back into it. Like we see a lot of physically defensive Groudons and stuff that isn't really popular nowadays from the old players. But hey, that's the clash of perspectives that this tournament was meant to draw out. And of course, Loco was very well known for his creativity back in the day. He was, I think, the earliest proponent of Quagsire in Ubers that I saw. As soon as he got Recover in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, he was like, yeah, this is a great Kyogre counter. He used a lot of lead T-Tar and Quag, and had a lot of great results. So I think you can find his old battles on the Smogan U YouTube channel if you like watching video recordings of old shoddy battles. I do. Anyway, Garay Oak, on the other hand, he's a great player in general, and just like Loco was back then, he had a lot of OU success. But Garay is also well versed in many generations of Ubers, and he's like Loco actually, in that he has a very interesting, effective perspective. Because some players go, they go past interesting and just go into like gimmick territory. But Garay never seems to go all the way into the gimmick area. He stays, creative, but very, very strong. The base idea is always very sound. Never something too wild and risky, which is how he manages to be consistent while being unpredictable. So, Kyogre versus D.O.N. D.O.N's niche is... It used to be really good. It was like a D.O. attack that could live 2 E-speeds from the old standard DOS. So its niche has not been really relevant in a long time. But if it's here... So in most cases here, it's going to be worse than Dio Attack. But if if Loco wanted to get the jump up on many variants of DOS, then I'm here to see what it could be packing. Probably Spikes. So he goes right to Dialga, not wanting to mess around with that Kyogre, and Gary goes for a Thunder, trying to land a para on the Dio. Just the Dio, no form, just Deoxys. He tries to land a para on the Deoxys, so if it goes for Spikes, he can limit it to 1 layer. So he just goes for Ice Beam on the lefties less Dialga, so really, really chunking it. Could be Custap. And Water Spout. So that's a really, really cool addition to the lead Kyogres that we've been seeing. A lot of them like to run T-Wave, but Water Spout is really nice because what do you do when you're at full health and Dialga comes in on you? Yeah, you can batter away with like Surfs or even Hydros and Ice Beams, maybe even T-Wave it, but you could also slam it with a full power Water Spout and do a ton. And as we see here, it deletes Dialga from over half health. Maybe you could even throw some Mystic Water on it just to really make sure you're stinging everything. So yeah, that was brutal. So now Deoxys comes back in, and it goes for some Spikes. So Loco's getting a lot of hazards uncontested, but he's losing uncontested in terms of opposing hazards, but he's losing pokes for it. And now Psycho Boost. So yeah, DOA would have been better there. So if you aren't facing the old standard DOS, then DOA generally will do DON's job better. But it is cool that we got to see it at least once and be reminded of the fact that Deoxys regular was once, or Deoxys normal was once in Ubers, and had a legitimate niche. I think he was used to win a Smogon Tour or 2. So yeah, that's for perusing through the old shoddy Ubers games. Oh, it has lefties. That's another really cool thing. In other series, we've seen just how much of an impact lefties can have on Kyogre. Just making sure it's threatening throughout the game rather than succumbing to one of its few weaknesses of residual damage. So that is really helpful. in general. And what's cool about lefties there is that you generally don't see lefties on Water Spout, but lefties actually lets you get back health if you're not being directly damaged, so you can potentially like boost your own Water Spout just by being on the field. So I really like that. That's very cool. So Bronzong comes in. If it comes in on Draco or Grass Knot, great. If it comes in on Thunder, less great, but still manageable. And it comes in on Grass Knot, which does a surprising chunk, but as Bronzong is heavy. But yeah, now he's going to get up rocks as Loco goes to Darkrai, and Dark Void looks... Oh, nope, it's not going to be free because Manaphy comes in. And Manaphy is an underappreciated Pokemon in Ubers for many reasons. And here, it's this is like the best thing it does. It is a perfect well, okay, Thunder Darkrai is good and gives Manaphy a hard time, but this is, you know, most of them do not run Thunder, and yeah, Manaphy can do this. Now here's where U-turn Manaphy, a personal favorite set of mine, it would be really nice. But you know, just throwing out a Surf is generally, or an Ice Beam to chunk the Latios is generally not bad either. He goes for a Surf. He might not have Ice Beam depending on his set. Generally you like Ice Beam, but it could also be something like Toxic, which I remember was fairly popular, or Energy Ball, or I don't know. I think it learned. I don't know. I don't think it learns Grass Knot actually. I think it does learn Energy Ball. So yeah, Energy Ball for Kyogre. But yeah, so now Groudon removes the Rain but takes a Surf and doesn't have lefties. So lefties. Even, I mean, the lum on stuff like Groudon Kyogre is so nice, but lefties really make such a big difference with KO thresholds and chip damage. It's just so crucial. So, obviously some teams need the lum or the life orb, you know, but it's just another example because I was reminded of I just did a series where an M-Dragon versus Lorient, and we saw how big lefties were in making Kyogre as threatening as it was, and, you know, here we're seeing that again in Water Spout, especially, but just making sure that Kyogre can come back in later without being put on such a fast-ticking timer with hazards. Really cut into that, and yeah. So Groudon pivots out, goes to Latios, trying to get some damage back, and it does have Ice Beam. So he was just going for the Surf just in case Darkrai stayed in and tried to mess it around. So, you know, solid move. I mean, Surfing Groudon certainly isn't bad. And chunking the Latios with Ice Beam is nice as well. So now Bronzong comes in, going to eat Draco Meteor quite well. I could have HP Fire because it is on a Sun team, and Zong would not want to switch into that, nor does Kyogre particularly relish the prospect of switching into Latios just to reset the weather. So Latios has the ball is in its court, but he goes for Recover. Now, I don't know if that... See, the thing is, because Loco has a lot of ground to make up, so I think he's got to be making, you know, offensive maneuvers. That would have been a perfect place to switch to Darkrai, because Manaphy's not staying in, and Darkrai will get the Dark Void off against Bronzong, and Manaphy will... Even if Manaphy switches in to absorb it, then Rain's not up, so Hydration won't activate, and it's going to take Bad Dreams, and then, yeah, Kyogre can switch in, and the Rain will go up, and you know, Hydration will activate next time Manaphy comes in. But that's where the Weather War comes into play, and you can just keep attacking the Rain, you know, trying to set up the Sun on double switches, and, you know, pressuring with Latios and Darkrai further, and, you know, really get something going. Whereas Recover doesn't really accomplish anything. I mean, Latios' health, I mean, yeah, it's nice to be able to switch into Manaphy's Ice Beam again, but now you have to, if you're not HP firing the Zong anyway, now you have to, I don't know. If he HP fires and 2-KOs the Zong, fine. But it might have been better to just HP fire right off the bat rather than like eat a Payback or Gyro and be at lower health than you would have been otherwise if you had just taken the Ice Beam and didn't have to take extra damage because you HP fired the Zong twice. So, yeah, he's got to start bringing it back tangibly now. And, yeah, so that's that. So it doesn't have HP Fire though, and Tina O comes in instead, and Garay makes a great move. That's a fantastic move. He pivots into Latios, and if Loco's Latios does have HP Fire, then Garay's will outspeed because HP Fire drops your speed IV. So Latios would be at 349, not 350. And since there's a rain team, then Garay's Latios is not going to have HP Fire, so it is going to be at that full 350, and he knows he's going to outspeed. and will be able to launch a Draco that is almost surely going to grab a KO. So great move there, and Loco is another reason why the pivot to Darkrai might have been better than, because Darkrai would be pretty threatening if Manaphy couldn't cut off its source of progress making, its Dark Void. So yeah, now Tina O not going to be able to KO Latios. So Latios is KOing something here. No two ways about it, barring a sneak crit. Now that looks like a max attack Tina O, because that sneak does a ton of damage. Not quite a KO, but close to it, as it's deleted by Draco Meteor. And now here comes the Rai and goes for Pulse. So in comes Dialga. So that's a good move, because if this is Scarf Dialga, then the only way Darkrai's outspeeding is if it's Scarf, and if it's Scarf, it's locked into Dark Pulse. And otherwise, then this is just another Draco, which is going to grab a KO. So Loco, either way, Loco has to switch, and in comes Latios. So this is looking really tough to bring back, because even if this is a Rock Polish Groudon, then Kyogre gets to switch in, and unless he manages to nail the Kyogre in the switch in, and then sack something, and then sack the Darkrai, and then set up Groudon again. I mean, he's taking if he's Life Orb anyway. He's also taking rocks damage and probably chip damage as he sets up, and it's probably just not going to be enough. He's not going to be able to break through the Manaphy, and so this looks pretty decisively won, as Manaphy switches in even in the sun to stave off the Groudon. So Loco makes a double switch to Darkrai here. Good idea, but it's looking a little too late as he gets the Void off, and Manaphy is, I mean, the thing is that he can just let Manaphy go here and then just Draco again with Dialga, and then yeah, I mean, either Darkrai dies and then Groudon comes in, and then Kyogre sets up the rain, and then Bronzong beats the Groudon. Not to mention that Dialga can still chunk Groudon and then make it even easier for it to succumb to Life Orb if it has it. And if it doesn't have Life Orb, it hits weaker, so it's really going to have trouble breaking through the Zong. But and if Groudon switches in, then the Dialga will just switch it back out and then come back in and finish off the Darkrai. So this is pretty much won just by staying in with Manaphy here. I guess feasibly you don't want to give Groudon a million turns of setup, like to Double Dance, but even then, yeah, you just go to Kyogre here and you limit it to one boost and it's fine. And Loco makes a great move back to Darkrai here, and really push. So I mean, this is what was what he needed to do, but earlier on. It was a nice idea, but earlier. Additionally, the early game he probably should have just stayed in with Deoxys and spiked and then Psycho boosted, as opposed to switching to Dialga without leftovers. And if he had done that, then he could have gotten a Rocks on the Kyogre more easily, because he wouldn't have given the Kyogre a free 19% chip from the initial Thunder. So yeah, that was could have been done better. But I mean, you can see the flashes. He's like, once he's getting back into it, Garay is playing just a rock solid game throughout. I mean, he's not giving up any edge. So, and he preserves Kyogre here just so he can cut off the Sun one more time. And sacking Manaphy, good move. Doesn't even if Groudon pivoted in there, then, well, I guess theoretically Groudon could have pivoted in there, and Manaphy wouldn't have woken up, and he could have forced in Kyogre once more, and then at that point, then he would have been free to have the Sun forever. So I guess if he kept double switching, then he could have potentially kept the Sun up and been able to fire punch his way through Bronzong and maybe get that. But then again, he still can't really set up the Rock Polish safely anyway. I mean, I don't know, because I guess, well, then all Garay has to, well, I mean, that's a nice idea and all, but then all Garay has to do is not switch to Manaphy anymore. If he switched back to, yeah, so then he goes to Kyogre, and if Darkrai comes back, and he just doesn't switch to Manaphy and doesn't let the Groudon come in and set, because the only way Groudon is setting up after that whole, make sure Kyogre can't switch in anymore thing is, yeah, you just like leave Kyogre in and then you sweep with Dialga's Dragon Pulse. So I mean, but if you were trying to do this whole thing but without it being like your last couple Pokemon with no other options, then it would have been much more effective. So you get the idea. Good idea. Little late. So now here comes Dialga, And Groudon, it doesn't really matter if you switch or stay in at this point. Dragon Pulse, cleaning up. So that's that was game 1. And it was a Scarf Darkrai, so yeah, no way it's winning this one, as I guess theoretically it could crit through everything, but yeah, you get the general idea. So we move on to game 2. Leads Giratina Deoxys attack. So how you want to deal with this is like DOA versus Rayquaza, except DOA can't E-speed to break Ray Sash, so it's worse, because you can spike and then switch to Dialga or something to deal with the Giratina afterwards, or you can. Generally, Giratina is not as threatening as Ray, so you're generally going to want to take the long term of the spike. But once again, Loco switches out of his Sash I assume it's Sash DOA anyway. I've never seen a non-Sash lead DOA. Non-lead DOA, yeah, you don't run Sash on that, but lead DOA, I've never seen anyone run anything but Sash on it. Anyway, he goes right to Dialga to chase the, well, he doesn't chase the Giratina out, as he takes EQ, and he's slower, and Garay does not, either he doesn't have Draco, which is, you know, very feasible. Like, if he's running a physical utility kind of set, like Sneak, Wisp, Dragon Claw, or Outrage, and EQ, then he's not going to, you know, have a Draco or Outrage to lock into to finish off the Dialga with the Grisiosaur boost, out-damaging EQ. So he comes up just short, and Loco Dracos and takes him out. So yeah, the instant power of Draco, even on support Dialga. Now we don't know if this is an offensive Rocks Dialga or a, you know, what's it called? Just a defensive support Dialga with something like Shuka Berry. But either way, the power of Draco Meteor, like even an offensive Dialga, if it had Dragon Pulse, then it's not exactly threatening to Oko Giratina there. So being able to have that burst Oko potential is really, really big. So, yeah, down it goes, and in comes Groudon. So, down go... Oh, well, there goes DOA's Sash. I was expecting DOA to come in there, and then you can threaten the... You can get up spikes, you can threaten some Psycho Boost, or maybe even Ice Beam or Grass Knot, because the DOA leads used to run Grass Knot a lot. Grass Knot and Shadow Ball and stuff. But, and they speed tie, apparently, as... you know, either 0 speed or, you know, some small amount of speed creep. But, yeah, because that looks like a pretty Spadef Dialga with how much it took from the -2. Looks like an offensive Dialga and a pretty Spadef Groudon from how much it took from the... It took 26 from the -2 Draco, so, you know, around half-ish from the full health Draco, roughly. So... Now, Groudon dodges, well, speed tie, but then Draco misses, and Groudon does not have any more chip on it. But here comes Kyogre, so what's the switching going to be? And Loco makes a double to DOA to hopefully get something done against the switch-in. So the switch-in is Latias. So at least he'll get down some spikes, but the DOA is taken out by Grass Knot, and it is 5-4. So now the question is, well, yeah. So that's the classic combination of hyper offense, and this is not just specific to DPP Ubers. This is several other generations of Ubers have this combo. You know, how do you make up for the fact that you're basically giving up a Pokemon to get up hazards? Well, yeah, you have your offensive pressure and whatnot, but with Darkrai's Dark Void, then you pretty much instantly delete something from the game, and you even it up, and then you keep the pressure going. And when they counterattack, then you can withstand that more easily. And suddenly the momentum and the flow of the game is yours, and you just keep the ball rolling. That's how it works. You know, if you set up something while your opponent KOs you, then you can guarantee you can take that good position and just run with it. So Darkrai is going to fire off the Void. In comes Garchomp, so now we know that this is going to be a banned, or more, I'm just waiting for the banned Chomps to show up, but this is more likely going to be a Scarf Garchomp, Sleep Talking, and firing off a Dragon move, and it's only going to be able to get off one, but, you know, it's still going to sting, because Garchomp's stabs are pretty brutal. Now, what exactly is the calc for Scarf Chomp versus Darkrai? I believe it's just a little short. Because, like, if Ho-Oh's Adamant Brave Bird isn't KOing from full, I have to imagine that Jolly, you know, maybe a low roll, yeah, okay, a low chance to KO after rocks. So if this is not a Scarfry, then I would definitely stay in and just attack. And Loco goes to Tina O instead, trying to launch an Assault and Sleep Talk and Outrage, and down it goes. So that's brutal, because the way Sleep Talk works in DPP, if you're choiced, then you can't use it twice in a row. It'll just fail. I mean, you can use it, but it'll fail the second time. So even if Loco's, or if Garay's Chomp selected Dragon Claw, then Tina, I mean, would have gotten smoked, but it would have gotten hit really hard, but it wouldn't have been KO'd. And Giratina would have launched an attack with Rocks and Spikes down. But, I mean, that's hardly RNG. You know, 33% is a pretty good chance. And if you really want to get technical, then if you Sleep Talk with Dragon Claw, that can also crit for a KO. So I think that was probably a case of not expecting the Sleep Talk. Because Sleep Talk was not very common in current... I mean, outside of, like, Rest Talk sets. But, like, choice Sleep Talkers, not really common at all. So, and I'm starting to suspect that that the Darkrai is, what's it called? Scarfed again. I guess it could be Scarf Kyogre, but I have to imagine that most other Rais would have stayed in an attack there, because it's not like Garay looks like he's packing a ton of Darkrai counters. I guess Giratina O can get the jump on something like a bulky Kyogre, but anyway, Kyogre comes in, and Kyogre is a massive threat, and it's because it's not like Groudon is exactly eager to switch into it just to change the weather, so it does come in, and probably will barely survive like a Specs Draco, but it's Life Orb Surf, and that's another very old school thing. Kyogres and Ubers used to exclusively run, what's it called? Life Orb. Nowadays it's all about Specs. But Garay makes a great pivot, because even if the Groudon was taken out there, then it would have allowed Fortress to get the spin off. And that's really valuable, because even if then Kyogre allows the Kingdra a permanent rain, then it's not going to be able to get through, Latias and Fortress, because I assumed he assumed Specs, because that's the most common set now, because the lack of recoil and the extra power is just too good to pass up. So it was, and we don't know his last yet either, but chances are from full health it was probably going to take a hit. So by potentially sacrificing Groudon to a Draco Meteor, or just by setting up the Sun, then you guaranteed that Fori was going to be able to get the spin off, and by removing the hazard pressure, you allow the remainder of your team the best shot at staving off the Kingdra anyway. So it wasn't necessarily about preserving Groudon, although if you can, then great, but even if it went down, then I think it was worth it just to be able to get the spin-off for Lottie and the assumed bulky last. I mean, even if it's well, actually it's a Scarf Chomp, assumedly, so probably not a Scarf Dialga, but whatever it is, probably going to be alright. Anyway, so Life Orb Draco does a big chunk with Rocks and Spikes, but not going to be enough with the Sun and the -2 special attack. So the spin goes off, and Latias is around to check the Kyogre. Now Loco makes a great move, and that's a Specs Kyogre. Forgotten Relic. Thing of beauty. But it's not quite going to be enough, and Latias is almost surely, yep, Grass not going to take a KO. And now Kingdra can't finish anything off, because Groudon is going to reset the Sun, and it will not go back to rain. So Latias comes back in, and roosts, and another blast from the past, Outrage. So that was one of the reasons why Kingdra liked to run Life Orb, because players like to run Outrage for the Soldew Lottie twins, so they couldn't be checked once they were at -2. So Latias does surprisingly go down, but it's going to be walled by Fortress, and it's especially a Protect Fortress, and it's very unlikely that Darkrai, even like if it gets a nasty plot off or something, then it's going to be able to do anything. But yeah, it is looking. I mean, you don't necessarily, the way it's switched out of the Chomp is what makes me think that it was Scarf, because Kingdra is, I mean, as long as you don't lose to Rayquaza because of Airlock, then Kingdra is with Swift Swim, then it's what makes sure that you don't really need to run a Scarfer necessarily. So but yeah, here comes the Darkrai, and it's just going to Dark Pulse, so probably not like nasty plotting or focus blasting anything, and just trying to Dark Pulse its way through everything, but Steel still resists Dark in this generation, and yeah, so it gets the Toxic off, so that's going to be the ball game. So really nicely done by Garay. He was not too known in DPP Ubers prior to this. He's, I mean, I know I've seen him play the tier, but I really liked, I always like seeing his approach, and it's really solidly put together and really well executed. So, thank you guys for watching this one. I think this game, it would need too much padding for it to, well, hopefully you weren't paying attention to the length, because the second game was had a pretty intense back and forth. And also I'm pretty tired, so I don't really want to pad it too much more. But hopefully this talking will get the job done. So yeah, I was glad to see both these players play, and I mean every matchup, and that's what's great about tournaments like this when they're invitational. All the matchups wind up being great. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.